Hey y'all, this is Cindy. I'm the Tireless Tangler, and you've arrived at day 59 of the 100 Days of Zentangle Project 2020. Thank you all for being here with me today. Our tangle is going to be ANNING. It is by Teresa Clerc, CZT. There's an interesting article about why it is named this. It's named after a lady in the before now. Who was a big leader in geology and fossil finding and such like that, and never got any credit for it because of her gender. So interesting article on tanglepatterns.com if you want to read it. So this is what this looks like. And this is actually from a video I did earlier, but of course my camera angle was off and it was all off screen. So here we are again. This is basically a tangle that begins with the tangle printemps. That is the French word for spring, but is also the name of a simple spiral that we use in Zentangle. It is not that Zentangle owns the spiral shape. It is that they have given it this name so that we all know what we're talking about. Because although we could say spiral for printemps, there are so many others that can't be described as that. So, you know, it makes it difficult. Okay, so how do we do this? Let's take a look. So I'm going to make some loops today with my string. And so one of my things that I'm going to do is I'm going to make my Maria Thomas loop border edge. And I'm going to go ahead and be as wavy and loopy as I want to be today, because it's not really going to matter. We're going to be putting these shapes all over the place. And sometimes, as in the example today, you can see where putting a loop and a wavy border on your string can make it look really pretty and interesting. So sometimes not. But that's how we're going to do it. And I think today I'm going to put another loop. And I don't know that it matters if those overlap. And no, I'm going to leave them like that. So let's do one and step it out and see how we do. I'm going to start on this larger loop down here on this side. And I'm going to start with a decent size printemps. Now remember, on this version, we're going to want to tuck in the little tail on this, okay? So from that point, I want to start where my tail tucks in, okay? Well, let me say that a different way. I want to start about halfway across here from where I tucked my tail in, okay? And then I'm going to come out with a C-stroke, and I'm going to end up at the same spot where I tucked my tail in. Let's see if we can do it. Okay, so it's like we put a little hat on our printemps. So I'm going to start a little ways away from the edge here. And this is because we're going to turn a corner. And I'm going to add a little bit more there. By the way, I want to thank Nancy Pearson for the gift of this beautiful PN pen, and the set of colored PNs, and the set of koi coloring brushes in grays. Warm and cool. That is such a lovely gift, Nancy. Thank you so much. She's determined to keep me in ink. And that is appreciated. So basically what you want to do is the side that you're turning away from, that's the side that you want to start gradually moving your start point up, okay? And the other side that coming in here in the middle, that's where you want your end point to continue to be, okay? And you're going to add C shapes of varying sizes as you get larger and smaller here. First you get large, you get around the corner, And once you get back around to the front, then we're going to go and make them a little smaller. And put a little bit more of the curl towards the center. And this is how we make it look like it's curving. But each time we're going to follow this line back to our start point. Okay? As long as we are still following this line back to the start point, these are going to curl around. If you ever get one really wide that you want back, you can, if there's enough room, slip another line through there. This one's going to be kind of lumpy, I think. It's time for me to start graduating down in size with these. And remember, I'm starting further down from where I was the time before, and I'm always tucking in right here to this center point. Once you get small enough, it goes pretty quickly, like that. And it kind of looks like a snail shell or a fossil or a little seashell. Don't make me say that twice. Okay, so this did not get very large. I was hoping for more for myself, but there you have it. So I'm going to try to do better this time. There, that one's got to be bigger. So again, you're going to want to start on the midpoint across from where you tucked your tail in. Now, honestly, you can start anywhere you want around here, but in order for you to have a natural looking spiral that comes from all of these and spirals in through the middle, then this is how we need to start. Okay, so midpoint across from your where your tail tucks in, and that's where you want to start, and then tuck in right there at the same spot. And we're going to continue to do this, getting larger first. Okay. But I'm still coming right back to this same line. Okay, now I'm going to have to make something up here. That should be interesting. Overlapping these can be a little bit problematic because you've got several factors to keep in mind, but it can be done. Maybe not by me, but it can be done. At this point, I'm just going to start up again and bring my lines around like I did on the last one. Now, the width that you use on these can make a difference in your finished product. If you pack your lines very densely and close together, you're going to get something different than if you let them be wild and free and wide. Now, the further over I'm getting, the more close in I'm starting to this other side. Okay. Now that we're right here, I'm not able to get all the way in there anymore, so this is going to naturally get a lot smaller. So these are echo lines in their truest form. An echo line begins and ends on the same line, but gets gradually smaller or larger depending. This particular set gets both. I love the fact that I was able to extend this around so far. I think that looks really cool. Although I wish this were the top element. I had meant to have a big one on top, but I can work with this. I can work with it. Okay, let's add a couple more and see where we're at. I think I will add another one and sort of layer that underneath over here and hope that I can enhance the idea that this one is sitting on top, even though the other ones may be larger. So let's hold our breaths and see what happens. Don't hold your breaths. Breathe. Okay, so halfway across and ending where the tail ends. Ooh, we're gonna divide this one. And just like that, it's not so bad. And we'll clean that up as we go. The more lines we bring in there, the more it will get messy. So you know, that's why I frequently have a big black spot in the middle. It's because when those lines come together, it gets messy. All right, now let's turn the corner by again shifting the place where we start here. And then bringing it down where the tail ends. Oops. Okay, and I don't think we're going to be able to see any more of those. So we will just do that. Okay, now I think now I want to intersperse some medium-sized ones here. And sort of maybe this size instead of larger. Although bigger means less work. Maybe, sometimes. So I'm going to try one that is more like Linda Farmer's example and a little flamboyant on the outside. This ought to be interesting because, you know, it's me. So again, I'm going to start halfway across from my end point. And tuck in here. The first part is the same. Oops. Okay, so basically she gets to a point, and hers was nicer than that, but she gets to a point where she's got this all rolled up, and then she starts coming out with these sort of petal shapes. Let's see if we can do it. And I just mentioned this, not because Linda got it wrong, but because I thought it was fun to play with the ends of this. Remember, the key to this wrapping around is starting further over with each stroke and drawing it in to the center, or to the end spot each time, whether it's on the other side or not. Make that curve all the way around. And just get gradually smaller. So that's a different look, isn't it? And these are very, very much more regimented, and this is very flamboyant, and I kind of look like the differences, so I may make another one that's a little more similar to this over here. So much for my medium size. I really got on the flamboyancy train. I'm going to see if I can start this small. Oops. And then over here, I'm tucking up right where that tail goes in. Kind of fun, isn't it? It looks more like once you get around there that it's laying in, you know, it's laying inside something. It's interesting. So just because something is drawn one way in a step out does not mean you can't change that up and do something a little different. In fact, it's kind of approved of. It's kind of a necessary thing that we want. Okay, so I'm going to pretend like that ends right there. Otherwise, I don't know what I'll be doing. So. Okay, now, do I want to put a couple of small normal ones in over here? Maybe 2, maybe. This technique, if you haven't realized that already, of the echo lines is used over and over and over in tangling. So I went ahead, I wondered if this would be too confusing for some of the beginners, but I realized that it's not that it's difficult, it's that learning how to get the result that you want can be a learning curve. Once again, I'm tucking those lines all up in there. Right here, right there is where my little tail closed off. And while it's been saturated, that area has been saturated in ink, there, that's kind of cool. All right, let's do a couple more. now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and fill in some of these spaces with smaller versions of printemps. Since we've already got it on the tile, I don't consider that cheating on our monotangle challenges. So let's see what that brings us. Now I will tell you right now that one of my challenges is doing printemps with a sparkle or line weight. I have trouble either way, and those are the two things that I think make printemps something special. So I'm going to see what happens, and I make no promises. Okay. And then any place that isn't printemps or a manning, an M Anning, I'm going to put little orbs. And then I'm going to blacken any spaces that I can't fit one of those. Okay? And here's my border line, so I think I'm going to leave this without anything. Little things, little elements like this can really dress it up. Also, a tiny bit of rounding is nice. Okay, so that is where I'm going to leave it today for line weight. I am going to leave these sections, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and draw this over, but I'm going to leave this middle section blank just for something interesting. And I think I'm going to also leave these sections coming in a lot. The edges not being completely straight or anything gives a lot of visual interest to this. I'll probably put a few more orbs over here, but I think in general that's where I'm going to leave it. Let me just do that real quickly, and then I will shade, and I have something I want to show you quickly before we start the shading. Now, if you have trouble forming your orbs, remember it's nice touch to start on an already existing line. When you begin your pen stroke, that will lessen the likelihood that you will have a mess when you lay your pen down. Okay. We'll finish up some of that here after a bit. And I may draw an aura around all of this at some point. Let me show you what I'm going to do with the shading. And before I do that, let me show you this. I went ahead and did the test. One of their big selling points for Sakura pens is the fact that their pens are waterproof once you lay them down. And so they are used for archival, out in the field types of things. And I want to tell you that earlier this week, if you watched that video, you know that I took a colorless blender and was able to draw pigment out of all kinds of microns. So what I did was I did a test. I was curious, is it all colors or is it also black? Are all colors the same? Does it matter the type of pen? So I went through and I have brand new pens here. My 01 in black and my PN in black were new. My 05 in green was brand new. The purple one was new. The sepia was about a year old. This brush pen, the red brush pen, I'd had for years. And this 03 was, it's several years old too. So all of these picked up the ink and spread like a champ. And unfortunately, that's not what we want from our microns, is it? So the point of this is not to beat up on anybody, although I want an answer from Sakura about why this is the case. But I even got pigment off of the black 01, and that surprised me, because I'd never noticed it before. However, when I started using my koi coloring brush to shade with, that's when I started noticing. And remember when I would get into these areas and think I hadn't put that much pigment down, and then all of a sudden it would just blossom out? I think this is why. So I'm going to do a little test here with no shading brush and no color whatsoever. And I'm going to take it around in these areas. This is just my Tombow N00 colorless blender. And you can see here that there, well, this shows what I know. Okay, now it doesn't have any pigment on it. Okay. Now, let's try this out. Look at that. Look at that. That is not waterproof. So, if you have a colorless blender and you're using a micron pen, you don't have to use a coloring brush. Just grab you a colorless blender and go to town with it. I don't understand. I would love it if some of you could do this test with your microns and see if you're getting the same result that I am. I'm just stunned, especially by this. Especially by this right here. These are black This was a brand new Micron PN right out of the package. And yeah, it's got a lot of pigment, a lot of ink. So, you know, I shouldn't be too shocked. But I am. I mean, I didn't give it a lot of time to dry, but I did give it time to dry. So, yeah, I'd love it if a couple of you would do this at home. Make some marks with your microns and see what happens. Try this blending technique with a water brush, although I have to say that this was this produced more pigment, using this did, than my regular water brush. And it may be because of the rubbing against it, I'm not sure, but something to think about. So I'm not even going to use my koi set that I got new today from Nancy. Thank you, Nancy. You're just the best thing ever. So I'm going to work this color up. Very carefully, trying not to blend in too much pigment. And again, I'm just picking up the pen color, the ink color, and dragging it around. Now I may want to darken that at some point, but apparently not. It can be a real practice run trying to blend these without lines, so be gentle with yourself. Give yourself time to practice it. It takes practice. But I'm really, really frustrated with my Micron pens. This is not supposed to happen. Waterproof means it doesn't run when you get water on it. And while it isn't running per se, it's definitely shifting the pigment. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there for now. I'll probably extend that up somewhat right here. I'm too incensed by the fact that I'm doing shading with no pencil right now. Which I suppose that's a good thing, but still, you ought to be able to choose. Not a bit of pigment at all have I put down here, except for the inking pen. This is crazy. No wonder I was getting so much pigment, no matter how much of that I was putting down. That's craziness. Now you can see that I'm just shading along the inside of each one of these at first. Of course, the tough thing is getting this down without a line, and that's extremely hard, especially when you've got a lot of pigment that you're moving and not a lot of space. If you can break up any lines you have, that's always good. Now I am going to go through here and look for all of the places where it looks like one element is crossing over another. Now this isn't exactly over this, but it might cast a shadow. I don't know. Work with me here. Here, however, this is sort of tucked up under there. Okay. So I'm going to go through and take care of that on each one. Now here I'm going to have to be careful. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but I'm going to try. Okay. I just cannot get over how much pigment these pens are letting go of. All right, so this is getting closer. Now I am going to, from this point on, I'm going to add maybe a couple of printemps. I'm going to do some rounding and line weight maybe in here. And then on these ones with the large sort of loopy sections, then I may do something funky on there, I'm not sure. All right, I think I'm going to leave it here with you today. This is ANNING by Teresa Clerc. It is for day 59. If you are new to the 100 Days of Zentangle project this year, I encourage you to jump in anywhere. And if you would like to start from 0 or 1, you can check out this list, this playlist right here. You're going to want to check that out. Or you can check out this video, which I'm betting you haven't seen. So, or right here in the middle, this is for subscribe. Subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. All right, guys. I'm going to see you tomorrow. I'm weird.